Hello friends, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing another responsive web design project. We're going to build a technical documentation page. The object, we're going to match this code pen. We want to fulfill the following user stories. I can't open the code pen, and because I'm in Vietnam right now, it might be weird. You can use the following user stories to get your own personal style. You can use HTML, JavaScript, CSS to complete this project. Plain CSS is recommended because that is what the lesson has covered so far, and you should get practice with plain CSS. So I think that's a great idea. You can use Bootstrap, but we haven't gone through the Bootstrap stuff yet, so let's not do that. Additional technologies like jQuery, React, Angular, Vue, don't use these things for this. Other projects will give you a chance with these different tech stacks like React. We will accept and try to fix all issues. Okay, cool. So I can see a main element with a corresponding ID. Cool. You can build your project by forking this code pen, or you can use this CDN. So this is what we're going to use, CDN, and then like in the previous projects, we're actually going to get this up and running as a real web page using Git and GitHub. So first off, I want to open up the terminal. I'm going to change directories into my desktop. And if I go ls, I can list out. My desktop's really clean. I've only got code, life, and multimedia on there. And we're going to, first off, I want to make a folder. So if you look at my desktop, all it's got is these 3 folders on it. So I'm going to make a directory, and we're going to call this technical documentation page. Cool. And now if I list out the folders there, you see technical documentation page is there. If I scroll out, you can see I've made a folder there. That's all I'm doing. You could just right click on the desktop, but I like using the terminal because I think that it's important to know how to do this stuff. So I go change directories. I type in the first few letters and then I hit tab to quickly bring it up. And then if I list everything in there, then there's nothing in there. So the first thing we want to do is create a new file, and we're going to call it index.html. So we've created our first HTML page, and so we're going to go atom and then index. So I'm opening up the index page in my text editor. If you're using Visual Studio Max or whatever, you can type in that. I want to drag the terminal down here. I used Better Snap tool to snap it into this position. And then let's see, I want to open with Google Chrome, I want to open the index.html. Cool. And so now that I've got the index page open here, and it's also on my text editor, Atom, I can begin to write HTML. So I'll start off just by writing a H1 element that just says technical documentation page. And I'm going to save this, and if I refresh this page, there you go, we're good to go. So now I'm just shrinking this technical documentation page down because I want to be able to write code on this side and then see what's happening here. Text here. And so here, and then I can close this paragraph tag, and if I refresh here, you can see we're working with the right situation. So I can save over here, and then print, and then see my work over here, and that's the way we're going to be building this page. Now, for me, in this one, I've kind of struggled with CSS because usually I always use libraries. Everyone always uses libraries now, so it's kind of difficult to build CSS from scratch, to be perfectly honest. So what I'm going to do with this one is I want to copy an existing page that we can feel free to copy. I'm fairly certain W3 School has open source code on it, but even if it doesn't, we're going to customize it so much that it won't really be what was there. And so, yeah, let's see here. What I want to do is, I think we could use this to start off. And I'm just going to literally take this whole thing. And what we're going to do, instead of writing everything from scratch, we're going to have this page fit the bill. And now, so I'm going to paste this in here. I know I want to keep this H1 technical document, so I'm going to get rid of that. But I am going to scroll down and add that in the header. And get rid of these guys. And now if I save this, and we come back to my index page, you can see, cool, we've got a bunch of stuff going on now. And now what we can do is just customize this the way that we want to. I've been building them from scratch, and it just honestly doesn't even feel like real web development. A lot of the times, what I spend doing more than anything else with web development is building off of templates and things like that. So now that we've got this template here, I'm going to close out of these windows. This is actually our technical documentation page. And then we can come back over here. Now, the thing that we want to do is add this to our portfolio with the CDN. And what does that mean? Free Code Camp pays for this JavaScript bundle, and we're going to add that into here. So the way that you add a JavaScript bundle into your project, now already I see that this is annoying, right? We should have proper indentation. The HTML tag is a tag. Nonetheless, a lot of times people don't indent the HTML tag, and I don't like that. I think it doesn't make sense. It makes sense to indent everything as if you were trying to do it as well as possible. And then you want your style tags to be indented off of there as well. So HTML head style. Your style is 3 off. You come down here. Weird. Why is the body tag here? Oh, that's the start of the body tag. Our head. Okay, our head tag and our style tag should be here. There we go. Okay, so now style is 3 up. This one. And now you can see my text editor matches it up. And then with the body, again, they did the proper indentation after the body tag, but they didn't do it for the body tag. So we want to increase this. And now we've got proper indentation. So we can see we've got a footer. If I click this div, I can look at the blue line and I see that this is the next row. This is the top nav. This has links. And then it's very easy to read the code now that it's properly indented. Okay, so now that we have this set up, I want to bring in the testing framework. So I'm going to come down and grab this CDN. I copy the CDN address, and we want to add this within the body tag because it needs to run after the page is loaded. So I'm going to add it here. We're going to go script, the source. This is the code, and then we need to add an end script page. And now if I save this and I come back to my index page and I refresh, never translate that. We've got our testing suite open. So once again, I've just gotten hung up on this before. We want to make sure we add this script page within the body tag. I used to add it in the head tag, and I had a big problem with that. Not within the style tag. And I think it's best to add it at the bottom of the page. Adding JavaScript at the bottom of the page is a good best practice because sometimes it depends the order. You want the HTML to load before the JavaScript. And so, yeah, so over here we can do is come and set this to the technical documentation page. And if we run the tests, we see that we passed most of them, or we passed 3 of them, which is cool because we just started. And then this is how we're going to do this. I'm going to, as I always do it from a test-driven development standpoint. So we've already got a bunch of stuff to fill in, but what we want to do is make sure that our web page matches the tests that are built. Sometimes people will write tests for you and say, hey, write this code based on the test because we need to get the test passing. And that's not an unlikely thing to happen. So here they say that they want to see a main element with a corresponding ID of main document. So this is going to contain the main documentation. Cool. So, you know, if we look down here, we see that we've got a title heading here and a title heading here. We don't need both of those, right? So, I mean, really what we could do, if I run the test, what do I want? A main card row. Instead of calling this row, or actually we could just do this, no, this is the left column. And this is the right column. About me, follow me, text heading. Okay, so this is the card. Cool. So we've got, this is one card, and then this is a second card. So I think what we could do is call this the main area. Whoa. We want to set it a main element. So I've got it as a div. That's not right. We want to do main, and we want to set the class equal to main doc. And save this. Cool. And now if I refresh the page, nothing specifically should have shown up here. Yeah, because just because I wrapped it in a main doc, it didn't mess anything up. Unless it did. Oh, it looks like it actually did. It threw the sidebar off. Interesting. Okay, cool. So instead of putting it here, I'm actually going to put it within the card. Which means, here's another example of when having proper indentation helps, because now I know that this is the div that I need to remove. Oh, you know what? I'm going to put this back. Here's what I think actually happened. I've got this div. This should be main. Close main. Cool. This might actually fix that problem. Cool. And now, so we're maintaining this, but now our main heading is this one. And if I were to inspect the page, scroll down so we can see both cards. If I highlight the main doc, it actually is for both of these areas. And so we're passing the tests. I should see a main element with a corresponding ID, main doc. M-A-I-N doc. Contains the page main content. Weird. Okay, so it's not accepting it. Let's see if we put this around the row. Cool. So now we've got the row, and then within it, we've got the main documentation. Run the tests. Still doesn't pass. You can see a main element with a corresponding ID. There is no element with an ID of main doc. Ah, I see what's going on. I set it as class. It needs to be ID. If I save that, refresh, run. Got it. Okay, so we've got that back. Now, I actually liked the idea of having the left column be the main doc. So I'm going to keep it like that. Sorry, I was making that mistake related to, I was making the mistake of setting it, I set the main doc as a class rather than an ID, and so now we've set it as an ID. Now if I save this, it should pass. Okay, cool. So it is passing. Once again, if I refresh here, we see our main doc includes both of those cards. And so we have individual cards. And so, yeah, I just got to be careful about making sure class and ID are different. So within the main doc element, I can see several section elements with each class of main section. You can see section elements. Cool. So I'm thinking what we could do is add, after these card sections, there should be a minimum of 5 sections. Okay, so right now we have 2 cards. So let's make that 5 cards. So that's 4, and that's 6. I'm going to get rid of 1. And now within each of these cards, I want to make a section element with each class of main section. There should be a minimum of 5. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm clicking here, and then I'm command clicking so that I can add multiple cursors. And then I can enter, and then I'm going to enter a section. And we want the section to have a class of main section. Cool. And then let's see here. I'm going to tab out all of these so that they are properly indented. And then I'm actually going to click right below the div at the base. And this will make it so that I can just go close this section. And I can write it just once and it fills in all those parts. Okay, cool. So now we have 5 sections with a class of main section. There should be a minimum of 5. And so if we refresh the page, now we can see we've got 1 title heading, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if we run the tests, it looks like we passed the next one. Awesome. The first element with each main section should be a header. The first element within each main section should be a header element, which contains the text that describes the topic of that section. Text that describes this topic of that section. Cool. So yeah, what I think we could do is which contains text that describes the topic of that section. Not all elements with the class main section have a header element at the first element. Okay, so what they want us to do, each of these should have a header tag. Right now, they're all H2 tags. So I'm going to press Command F, and I'm going to click H2. I'm going to find those. It looks like if I just click find, I'm getting most of them. But then the About Me section down here is causing a problem as well. So what I want to do is I'm going to put in here, I'm going to write header. So what this does is I'm searching for this and then I replace it with this. So if I find to the next one, the header, okay, I don't want to change those, but this is the one I want to change. And so I'm going to replace it with header. And you can see it replaces with header. So I can just quickly bang this out. And then once I'm done, I've got the 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the header elements in here. And so I'm saving this. And then we want to see if test 3 passes. I refresh it, run the test. It looks like it passed. Awesome. Each section, okay, yeah. The first element within each main section should be a header. So this is actually going to probably change our headings. Yeah, because our existing CSS probably has styled an H2 element. Does it style our H2 element? Huh. Header H1. I'm looking through this CSS to see if it makes a difference. Interesting. Okay, so it does seem to have changed something, but we can worry about styling later. For now, we're just going to try to make sure we pass the test. So each section element with the class of main section should also have an ID comprised of the header inner text contained within it, with underscores in place of spaces. Should have a ID comprised of the header inner text contained within it, with the underscore in place of spaces. The ID may include special characters if there are special characters in the respective header inner text. The section that contains the header JavaScript and Java should have a corresponding ID of JavaScript and Java. Okay, got it. Should have an ID comprised of the header. Okay. So each section element class of main section should also have an ID comprised of the header. Okay, so section class should have an ID comprised of the header. And so our technical documentation page will be, let's call it technical documentation page, how to start a motorcycle. This is just, you can change this at anything that I do that's related to the thing. I'm just going to make a technical documentation page on how to start a motorcycle. So I'm going to save this. So our first title heading is going to be sit on motorcycle. And so our corresponding ID should be sit on motorcycle. And if you notice in here, they did it with case sensitivity on, so we'll just maintain that. Sit on motorcycle. Now if I save that, right now you'll notice here in the tests, it shows we should have a corresponding expected false to be true. No, I'm jumping ahead. I'm missing this code. Each section with class of main section should also have an ID comprised of the header inner text. The main section should have an ID attribute. Okay, cool. Main section. Here, each main section should have an ID attribute. Main section. Oh, this is main section should have an ID attribute. Okay, so this is saying it should have an ID attribute, and here we're describing what it is, at least 5. And here you notice that the failing test says expect 0 to be at least 5. But I've written 1 in, so if this says expect with 1 to be at least 5, then we're good to go. So I want to save this, refresh the page, run the tests, and then look down and check to see if my class, see if it's improving. Expected 0 to be at least 5. So I didn't get it right. This is still 0. There are not at least 5 code elements. Oh, should it contain at least 5 code elements? Okay, I'm actually jumping ahead with this one. I misread that. But our main section should have an ID attribute. So all it's saying is it should have an ID attribute. We want to just set an ID attribute for the rest of these. So yeah, section, main section, and then ID is equal to sit on motorcycle, but we don't want to do that. Then we want to say lift kickstand. And then I'm making this match the header element. And then here I still have the section ID pasted. So and once you lift the kickstand, you want to say turn on ignition. And then the header will be turn on ignition. Again, we're in our section, we're adding an ID. After you turn on the ignition, press ignition button. Press ignition button. And then on our final one, we're going to say, once you press the ignition button, you know, drive motorcycle. The silliest documentation page of all time. And I don't recommend getting caught up in trying to make these really, really good or really cool, because really what you're doing right now is just practicing building web pages. There's no sense in taking way too long of a time figuring this stuff out. So I saved this page, and now I'm really hoping that we pass test 4 when I refresh the page. So I refresh, run the tests, and we passed test 4. Great. So yeah, the main section elements should contain at least 10p elements. So because I'm using this template, we've already got this Latin in here, which makes it so that we're already passing this because we've got the main section contain at least 10 elements. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh wow. I bet if I commented this out, the test 5 would fail. Yeah, test 5 fails, but because I duplicated this, so if you're doing this and you didn't generate, if you're not actually just copying the W3 school one, you're going to want to make sure that within your main section, which is this guy, no, within the main section, so this is the main section, the main doc, you're going to want to make sure that there's 10 p elements in there. So I uncommented the p element, and I refresh, and we'll see that I'm passing test 5. So because inside of this main doc, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't have to be directly within the main, a direct child node of the main node, but it does have to be within on a deeper level. So the main section elements should contain at least 5 code elements in total. There are not at least 5 code elements throughout all of the code class. Okay, cool. Well, we have 5 cards, so what we can do is just put 5 code elements in there. I've got this, yeah, I'm just going to put them right below the header. So again, I'm just clicking command click in order to add a bunch of cursors, and then that way when I press enter, I can type 5 times with just once, and then I'm just going to write in some code, and I'm going to close the code element. So now if I save this, my guess is that number 6 will pass. Cool, it looks like it did. Now, even though there's nothing there, it passes the test. And you know what, for us right now, that's what we want to do. Let's look at the next one. The main section element should contain at least 5 list items. Items total, not each. Okay, cool. So let's see, drive motorcycle. Maybe down here we'll create a unordered list or an ordered list, and then an ordered list. Well, actually, let's do it at the top, because we could say sit on motorcycle. And then basically, like, the idea is that when you sit on the motorcycle, this is when you want to make a list. You want to check an ordered list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is your helmet on? Are you wearing long pants? Do you have closed-toed shoes on? What's another one? Are you sober? What's another thing that you want to do when you're thinking about motorcycle safety? Is the bike in good order? Maybe not are you sober? I think that's a little unprofessional. How are the weather conditions? Cool. So now if I refresh the page over here, you'll see that I've got a list element as my first thing here. Is your helmet on? Are you doing this? And so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 list elements. And if we run the tests, it looks like they pass. Yeah, the main section should have at least 5 list elements. Now it says not each. That means you don't have to put one ordered list within each one. You can just do one. And so this is what passes the test. I can see a nav element with a corresponding ID of navbar. Well, luckily with this one, we've already got a navbar here. And so we just need to find that and adjust it here. So the one that we copied has a different layout. If we run the test, it says that we want a nav element with an ID of navbar. So we want to change this to nav. And we want to say the ID is equal to navbar. And if we save that, that should pass the test. But I also want to be aware of the fact that I changed this from div to nav and see if that affects any of my CSS. So I'm looking through here. Row, footer, card, fake image. All of these don't relate to the nav. Top nav. A hover. I don't think that will actually change. Tab bar. Wait a second, where did I put my nav? Oh. Okay, I did this completely wrong. I want to add this ID here to the nav. How did I mess that up so bad? Okay. And then I want to go nav here, change these guys to nav. And save this here. Okay, and so top nav. Cool. So top nav with A on hover. So that's actually not going to affect because we still have the class selector. We haven't changed anything. We've just made it with an image. And so if I save this and I come back over here, I refresh the page, you can see my navbar hasn't been affected, but if we run the tests, you can see that you can see the nav element with a corresponding ID of navbar. So this was a good move. How I messed it up so bad like that was a little bit beyond me. But anyways, the navbar element should contain one header element which contains text that describes the topic of the technical documentation. The navbar element should contain one header element which contains the text that describes the topic of the document. Interesting. Header element. Well, what we could do, okay, we expect 0 to equal 1. The navbar should contain one header element. I mean, can we go like header and then say, I'll close the header. I don't know why you would use a header element in here. You know, sit on motorcycle. This doesn't make sense to me, but I'm going to refresh. Now we're checking number 9 to see if it passes the test. Okay, we passed the test. Now what does this do to our page? It says sit on motorcycle. It's weird that they're asking us to add it as a header element, but you know, we're passing the test, and for our purposes right now, our goal is just to get the tests to pass. Additionally, navbar should contain a link with the class navlink. Okay, link. Additionally, the navbar should contain anchor elements with the class navlink. Let's do this to all of these. Class equal navlink. There should be one for every element within the main section. Okay, so what they're trying to do is get us to create a link so that if we were to click here, sit on motorcycle, we go directly down to here. And so yeah, we've got, so that means we're going to need 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now what we want to do is add an ID of navlink here. Let's make the spacing proper on these guys. Element does not contain any elements with the class of navlink. Expected 0 to be above 0. So now we've got 5. So if we save this one, I think, and come back over here, run the tests, we should see that test number 10 passes quite abundantly. Each link contains an A element. So instead of 0, we have 5, and there should be one for every element with the class main section. This is the main section, and basically we want it to link to these guys. So the header element in the navbar must come before any link. The header element should come before the link. Okay, so the header element should be here. The A element should be here. We're basically just switching these guys. And then I'm going to change the nav link to here. Now, no, I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to actually get rid of all this. And I'm just going to do this 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. The header element is in the navbar must come before any link elements in the navbar. So I'm going to save this, and now we should be passing number 11. Contain one header element which contains text. Okay, so 9 failed, but 11 passed. And so we want this to contain text. So maybe here we're going to say step number 1. And I'm just going to do that as well to each header element. Number 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to save this and refresh the page. Okay, so this looks terrible, right? We're really messing it up. But if we run the tests, let's see what happens. The navbar element should contain one header element. Describes the topic in depth. Oh, so we don't want a header on everyone. Cool, so now I'm just going to have to get rid of this. Get rid of all this header information. I'm just leaving the links in here. But I do want to say in here how to start a motor cycle. And if I save this, let's see what happens. So right now we're passing 12, refresh, run the tests, 13, nice. So our header element Each element with the class of navlink should contain text that corresponds to the header text within each section. If you have Hello World section header, your navbar should have an element that says Hello World. So instead of having sit on motorcycle be everyone, we want to start with here. So lift kickstand, we want to, well, sit on motorcycles first. The next one is lift kickstand. We want to turn on the ignition. Here we're going to write turn on ignition. Press ignition button. Press ignition button. Finally, drive motorcycle. Drive motorcycle. If we press the save button here and we refresh over here and run the tests again, great. It looks like it passed. Cool. So once again, if you're not passing the tests, double check to make sure that your A element links, this code matches what is in the header element within the section. And now the next thing, when I click the navbar element, the page should navigate to the corresponding section of main doc. The navlink element contains the text Hello World, the ID that contains. Okay, so when you click the navlink, it should have an href value that links to its corresponding main section. Example, pound, whatever. So yeah, this is our ID. And so what we want to do is where sit on motorcycle is, sit on motorcycle, we want to make the href be equal to the pound sit on motorcycle. And now if we save that and we refresh the page, you'll see that if you click sit on motorcycle, you jump to the sit on motorcycle page. And this is called like single page. That's just when you jump down to, I think it's called on page linking or something like that. But you basically just link to pound and then the ID of the section that you want to jump to, because this is the ID of the section you want to jump to. So now we want to just get our IDs up to here. Sit on motorcycle, lift kickstand. Well, actually I can just type them in. Turn on ignition, press ignition button, and then drive motorcycle. Now if I save this, refresh the page, you can see if I click drive motorcycle, I jump directly to the bottom of the page. And we can run the tests, see what happens. We've got 15. Nice. Okay, on regular device-sized devices, laptops and desktop, the element with ID navbar should be shown on the left half of the screen. It should always be visible to the user and should remain stationary. It should remain stationary. You may need to enlarge the viewport or zoom out to ensure the navbar doesn't scroll with the page element. Left of bounding rectangle is not correct. Expected 18 to be below 500. Interesting. So what they're saying is that they want this navbar to be on the right side of the page. Well, what I'm thinking about is like, we're going to have to change the way the navbar is laid out entirely. Now we don't need this about me section. So maybe what we could do is make this guy shift over to here and then have our navbar act like our about me page, right? So our nav right now is like there. This is our main documentation. This is our left column. And our left column is set by this guy, left column, right column. So if we were to make we could switch, we can make the right column 75% and the left column 25%, and we saved that. Then we've got our About Me page is way bigger than that. And now if we could get our nav bar in here and our other content to the right column, then that would be helpful. So right now, in our left column, we've got all the code that we just wrote. So I can take this, oops. This is everything from the main doc to the main. I can get rid of that by pressing Command X and throw this into the right column. And then I can take what was in the left column, remove it from there, and put it into the left column. What was in the right column and put it into the left column. So now if I refresh the page, boom, now I've still got my sit on motorcycle, lift kickstand thing, and our navigation still works. Now we don't need this about me, popular posts, and follow me nonsense, so let's just get rid of that stuff as well. We can keep it in the card element though, because the card is just this white exterior. So let's get rid of 2 of the cards. So that's the follow me and the popular posts, follow me and popular posts. If I get rid of that and save it, you'll see I've only got the about me. And then with the about me, I can say, keep it within the card and just get rid of the content. And if I save that, we'll see we still got the card. And so now what happens if we just throw this nav? We want to remove the nav class. I'm just going to comment this. I'm going to first copy it all, and then I'm just going to comment it out. Now if I save the page, you'll see that there's no navbar at the top. And then if we paste in our code for the navbar, we've got it in here. Now if I refresh the page, it's on the left side of the screen. The problem is when we click, it doesn't jump down with us, and I think that that's going to be a problem. And you know what? We don't need this top nav CSS, because the top nav CSS comes up to here, and we'll see that top nav. Oh no, we do. I kind of want to keep it. Overflow hidden. Well, let's see what happens if we take out the... I'm going to come back down here and get rid of the top nav and see what happens. Then we have to restyle these things. I don't want to do that. Print S and then refresh. It actually looks okay. We just need to figure out how to style the header better. But we need this in order to pass the tests, we need the header code to be within there. Well, anyways, let's see if we refresh the tests. Okay, so this still doesn't work, right? The top of bounding rectangle is not correct. On regular sized devices, the element with ID navbar should be shown on the left half of the screen. It should always be visible. The element with the ID navbar should be shown on the left. Top of bounding rectangle is not correct. 277 to be below 238. Well, it's saying the top of the bounding rectangle is not correct. So what we could do is get rid of this technical documentation page section. Yeah, here. Okay, now that we've got the nav bar there and it's still passing most of our tests, we can just get rid of this. How to ride a motorcycle. So now, well, what's happening is this header thing is getting in the way. So if I remove the header from the top, and then I can add the header in on the right column, the main doc. If I save it here, now we've got our technical documentation page, how to start a motorcycle, and we're getting closer to the top. So if we were to rerun our tests, oh wow, it passed. Cool. So yeah, it's really important to read the errors. Well, remember what that thing was saying? It says on regular size device, the element with ID navbar should be shown at the left half of the screen. So basically I just got rid of the thing that was in the way, and now it's passing its test. And so now if we say lift kickstand, we jump down here, right? Turn on ignition. That's cool. And now, let's see if my guess is if I come down here and run the tests, it won't pass. But it does. Because it refreshes the screen to the top. Okay, cool. So now it's tempting to do things like say, let's try to make this guy flow with you, you know, that's not super hard to do. But at the end of the day, this section of the thing, you're just writing your plain CSS. You're not going to be doing this stuff a lot. So I would recommend just moving on. Let's see, how to start a motorcycle. This as the header, it looks terrible, but we've already got how to start our technical documentation for how to start a motorcycle. I mean, really, you're still going to pass the tests if nothing is in here. And in terms of keeping the page looking good, you don't need it there. So, I mean, we can run the test and they still pass. That means that we've passed the test. We don't need to worry about putting stuff in there. Technical documentation page, that shouldn't be there. We should just say how to start a motorcycle, right? So let's get rid of the P element and let's change the H1 element to how to start a motorcycle. Now if we save the page, boom, we've got it. And then I guess it makes sense to actually make this page look pretty decent. How to start a motorcycle, sit on motorcycle. First, do a safety check. Save that, refresh the page. First, do a safety check. Let's see. We don't have to do that. We can just get rid of all this stuff. Oh no, we need to keep the P text, but we do not need this image element. And we could get rid of this. And then we save here. We don't have that terrible image in there, that terrible fake image. So now we could just say, when you first sit on a motorcycle, it's a good idea to take a moment and think about your surroundings. And then we'll just leave this Ipsum lorem text in there. So our next one, lift kickstand. Well, when you lift the kickstand, you don't need to have, we need the code element in there. Most modern motorcycles depend on you to lift the kickstand before you can start the motorcycle. Now, as I was writing this, I'm realizing that I want this to actually be the P text in here. And then I'm going to say kickstands. The kickstand is a metal piece that holds the motorcycle up when you're not there. So I save this code and refresh over here. Now we've got a little bit of useful kickstand information. So yeah, we come down here to the turn on the ignition. Well, we know we need the P elements, but we do not need this bad image. So here we can say, use your motorcycle key to turn on ignition. And then here we can say something like, you know what, I don't even need anything here. Again, I don't recommend getting caught up in this stuff too much. This is going to go in your portfolio, so you want it to look kind of good. But to be honest, this is the really basic portfolio stuff. So you're not going to be showing people your old CSS portfolio as much as you are when you're just, when you're going to have much more interesting projects in the future. So yeah, once again, we can get rid of the image and this H5 element. Press ignition button. Some motorcycles don't have an ignition button. If you don't have one, have an ignition button, use the kick start device. So I save here, and then we've got our ignition thing is a little bit better set up. Drive motorcycle, the best part. We can get rid of the image element and the H5, which was the date, and then the best part. And then we say, enjoy a safe motorcycle ride. Cool. And now, hey, we don't need this footer, right? So we can just get rid of that. Save that, refresh the page. There you go. I would call this complete because it's complete. We're passing the tests and there's no glaring design errors and it's super simple and it works properly. So I'd call this a good one. It's mobile responsive as well because we stole the code from W3 School, which is a better idea. Some people might say, oh, you want to make sure you write everything. That doesn't make any sense to me. You know, you could spend your time writing all this stuff, but to be honest, I don't ever really see people doing that nowadays. It's all about using libraries efficiently. And so being able to actually just recreate a technical documentation page based off the W3 school things, like to me, this is just as good if I were to look at somebody and was thinking about trying to give them a job. Okay, sweet. So if we list the elements, we see all we have is an index page on this project. It's really simple. We can say git status, because what we're going to do now is publish the page to GitHub Pages. For those of you who use CodePen, you don't have to worry about this thing, but yeah, I like to do that. So I'm going to go to GitHub and I'm going to sign in. I should be able to click this plus button and then go to a new repository. I'm going to call this one technical documentation page. Cool. Your new repository. Yeah, they're going to create it there. So this is a simple HTML CSS page that a simple page built with HTML and CSS, which describes the process of starting a motorcycle. And we create a repository. Cool. So now that we've created the repository on GitHub, we want to push an existing repository. So over here, you see if I go git status, it says fatal, not a git repository. Oh, that's right. I haven't started it. So I want to say git init. Initialized empty git repository. Cool. And now we can go git status. We've got index there, right? So, well, this is saying push an existing repository. We want to say git remote add the origin. So yeah, we just git remote add origin, then copy that into here. And then I want to say git push u origin master. That failed. Why is it? Failed to push some refs. Well, let's say git add, and then we want to add the index, and git commit add technical documentation HTML page. And now we want to say git push -u master, because previously we didn't have anything to commit. Great. So now if we come back over here and we refresh the page, we're going to see that our HTML page has been uploaded and we've created our technical documentation page. And the cool thing is we can just go to settings and scroll down to GitHub Pages. And we can say set the source equal to the master branch. And the page will reload automatically. GitHub Pages source saved. And we can scroll down to here, and your site is ready to be published at this HTML page. It doesn't happen immediately usually, so it's saying site not found right now. No problem, just wait for it. Sometimes it takes a little bit to sync up. In the meantime, we can add this to the repository. So if someone who we had never met before was checking out our stuff, they were checking out our GitHub page, they could come here. They're like, oh, what's this technical documentation page? Well, because we don't have a Readme file, there's no way for them to know what it is. So what we can do is go list out here. We can say we want to make a Readme file. So touch readme.md and make sure it's with capital and it's all case sensitive. And now if we list out our stuff, we can see there's a Readme file here. So we want to say open our Readme. That brings up the Readme tab over here. And now what we can do is say a technical documentation page. This is GitHub markup. So a single pound is like making a heading tag. So yeah, and then we'll do a heading 2, how to start a motorcycle. And then the way that you add a link with technical documentation is you do strict brace or square braces, followed by no space and curly parentheses with the link to where you want to link to. This is part of my free code camp project. This is one of my freecodecamp.org projects. Enjoy. Cool. Now if I save this, so basically I've created a heading tag that says a technical documentation page, and then I've linked how to start a motorcycle, and then underneath I've said that it's a freecodecamp.org project. So if I save this, I come back over to the thing. Now I need to commit it. So if I say git status, it shows me you have not committed the work that you've done on the README. So I want to say git add, and then the README. If I list out there, oh no, and now I want to go git commit -m, and then inside of here I'm writing a message, add the README file to, just add readme.md, and now I can say git push. Because I've already added the remote, it's automatically pushing it to GitHub, and so now there's going to be a README page if I refresh the page here. Cool. And you'll see that the README page, as long as it's spelt out exactly like this, you're going to see that it links to the project. So yeah, this is the technical GitHub Markdown, which shows up in your GitHub portfolio as this. Now, if we click the How to Start a Motorcycle page, it shows up, and your projects, you'll see we loaded it earlier and it wasn't there, but now, you know, it is there. So we're good to go. If we run the tests, we want to make sure we select technical documentation page, run the tests, it passes. I think this is kind of a cool thing. So if somebody were checking out your page, your GitHub page, and they were checking out your work and they were like, oh, a technical documentation page. Oh, this is a project that they did, and they clicked here. They're like, oh, this is really on the internet. It actually works. What's this? And then they're like, oh, I can click here, run the tests, and it passes. Well, that's pretty cool. This guy built a page, and it's actually on the internet rather than on a CodePen situation. And every time that you push code to GitHub, you just get a little, you know, people pay attention to things like contributions. And, you know, the longer that you start building up this wall of contributions, it makes you appear to be a more developed programmer. So I think that that's a really good way to do the project. And then it'll be in your repositories forever. So you can always, you can delete this folder and just pull down your code later if you ever want to use some of your code again. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so we take our URL and we head back over to Free Code Camp, and I just popped that window open. Once again, we've got a responsive web design technical things. We pop down here. It says a link to our solution, and our solution's on the internet, and we can say I've completed the challenge. Awesome. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll see you on the next project.